Almost everyone preaches the law of detachment except me. I do not think it should always be applied to relationships. Detachment is often the advice given to someone who is struggling, especially in a relationship. Detach, stop responding, cut them off, take your power back. Almost everyone preaches the law of detachment except me. I do not think it should always be applied to relationships. Detachment can feel like freedom, it can feel like reclaiming the upper hand. But sometimes you leave carrying more emotional weight than you carried while staying. Detachment itself is not necessarily the problem. The problem is what happens when you create distance before fully processing what the relationship left behind. When you detach abruptly, you do not only carry your unresolved feelings, you may also begin to carry your imagination of their feelings, whether they are hurt, angry, relieved, or feeling indifferent. It can feel as if you have taken the emotional remnant of both parties with you. The other person is no longer present to answer your questions for you, so your mind answers them instead. There are 4 phases most people experience after detaching. The first phase is the struggle phase. During the first few days, you question your decision. You worry about the what ifs. You wonder whether things could have changed. You may even decide that you would forget everything if the other person contacted you first. In this stage, you have created distance, but emotionally, the decision is still unsettled. The adaptation phase. After a while, you begin to feel better. They barely even cross your mind. You begin to notice how beautiful and peaceful your life can be without them. You make plans, you create new routines, and show yourself you can do better without them. But this phase can be delicate. The moment you give yourself time to breathe or you sit still, you may start to reminisce. You remember the good moments. You imagine what life could look like if you reunited. You ignore those thoughts because life without them has started to look like your new normal. But ignoring a feeling is not the same as processing it. The resurfacing phase. Eventually, what you have been avoiding starts to catch up with you. You start considering their feelings. You try to understand the situation from their perspective, even when they were the one who hurt you. You wonder whether you were too harsh. You wonder whether they miss you. You wonder whether they are doing well. Now, this does not necessarily mean you made a wrong decision. It may simply mean the distance ended the contact before your mind could finish processing what the contact left behind. Sometimes the other person stops contacting you too. Their silence creates even more uncertainty. You do not know whether they are hurt, respecting your boundaries, waiting for you, or simply moving on. Now, if they reach out during this stage, their message may feel like the perfect excuse to return. You reconnect, gradually open up again, and let them back into the emotional space you had tried to close. The fixing phase. Eventually, you may reach out yourself. You tell yourself you simply want to check up on them. Perhaps you feel bad for blocking or ghosting them. Perhaps you just want to see if they are doing okay. But sometimes reaching out is less about checking on them and more about relieving the emotional burden you have been carrying. Now, once communication begins again, emotional access begins to return too. You reconnect only to discover that they have barely changed. Sometimes they appear even worse than before because the distance gave you time to now see their patterns clearly. So, you detach again. Then you reconnect again, and the cycle continues until you are too emotionally exhausted to return. This is why detachment is often very costly in the long run. It may require very little emotional work upfront, but unresolved feelings often return later to collect the rest. So, if not detachment, then what? The answer is disengagement. Disengagement may look like detachment from the outside, but they are not the same. Disengagement is different. It considers what happened, what is happening, and what must happen next. It may not remove tomorrow's pain, but today's processing gives you something solid to carry into tomorrow. The most important difference between disengagement and detachment is the order. Detachment creates distance first and leaves you to process the emotions afterward. Disengagement processes the situation first and creates the distance afterward. When you detach, you may suddenly stop responding, ghost the person, block them, or rapidly disconnect. The silence can make you feel as if you have everything under your control. You may already be struggling with your feelings, but now you are left wondering about their feelings as well, what they think of you, and whether you handled the situation correctly. Disengagement asks you to stand your ground and examine the relationship before leaving. You process what happened, weigh the advantages and disadvantages, recognize the pattern, and reach the conclusion that staying is no longer worth the emotional cost. You do not necessarily stop caring before you leave. You simply understand why staying is no longer right for you. That understanding becomes your leverage. Not leverage over the other person, but leverage over your own uncertainty. You have already examined the possibilities. You have considered what could change and what probably will not. You understand your boundaries, your standards, and what you are no longer willing to accept. That is why it can be difficult to re-engage after truly disengaging. Whether the other person returns or not no longer determine your decision. Disengagement is not easy. That is why some people choose detachment instead. Detachment offers immediate relief, while disengagement requires emotional work before the relief comes. It is okay if you find detachment easier, it often is, but it also can be emotionally costly in the long run. Some people may detach, reattach, detach again, and repeat the cycle for a while. Others may detach once and never return. Do not beat yourself up. We process things differently. Sometimes, especially when a relationship or a situation is unsafe for you, you may need to create distance before you have fully processed everything. You may have to leave first and process the feelings later. But whether you process the feelings before or after leaving, just make sure they are eventually confronted. At the end of the day, only you can truly decide what works for you. Just remember, distance may end contact, but only processing can settle what the contact left behind. Thank you so much for staying till the end. My name is Ramat, and I will see you same time next week.